Hello. It's pretty loud. Okay. All right. All right. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming out, supporting the event. It's first time down in Tacoma for the event, I believe. Is that true? Yeah. So I barely got here. I left work about 3:45 and ran down I-5 and just got here just in time. So thanks for coming out on a Friday. And basically the format, I don't have anything necessarily prepared, a PowerPoint or anything. I'm not going to lecture about Donkey Kong or anything, but I want to kind of update if you've been following anything about the current Donkey Kong status. I'll just kind of go through what's happened since the film. How many of you have seen The King of Kong? I'm assuming most of you have seen it if you're here. Okay. So anyways, has anyone followed the recent happenings with the Donkey Kong world? Raise your hand if you've been keeping up on the current status of the record. No? All right. Well, there's been a few changes on the leaderboard, and I've kind of been debating if I want to go into the garage again and go for the record. You know, it's kind of a tempting situation. The problem is when I get in there, I tend to stay in there for a really long time, and the family doesn't really like that. So this summer, I'm going to be out of school in another 2 weeks, so I'm kind of contemplating whether I want to go for the record, like really dive into it again. There has been these Kong Off events. Have you heard of these Kong Off events that they've been advertising? Okay, there's these events. They're on the third one. Next, in this coming November, will be the third Kong Off. And since the film, there's been several people that have got interested in Donkey Kong. As you can imagine, that's kind of taken the forefront of most of the video games that are out there. So there's a guy by the name of Hank Chen. This guy's got the record now. He's at a 1,139,000. So he's a plastic surgeon in New York, and he has a little documentary out called Dr. Kong. It's like a 15-minute short documentary, but this guy's a great guy. I've met him several times at these Kong Offs, and he's just a phenomenal player, so I'm glad to be competing against the likes of Hank Chen. And then there's been some few other guys come on the scene that how many of you have played MAME a lot, like where you on the computer you're doing? Okay, these MAME players have been playing Donkey Kong with the keyboard, and a couple of them were at the Kong Off, and they've had problems adjusting to the joystick. But there's been one player, his last name's Wilms, who won the Kong Off last year, and he got 1,100,000. And he just recently started playing with the controls with the joystick, and he was just a MAME player. So I didn't think it would be that difficult to transition from the keyboard to the joystick. Another player, Dean Saglio, who's another great player, and he had more problems transitioning. But this Wilms player that won the Kong Off just was able to go in the public. I would think that the first time he'd play in public, he'd be a little nervous. I remember I was at San Diego Comic-Con, and I was up in this booth, and I was like, first time since the movie came out, and I was just shaking. I remember my hands, I was trying to hit the jump button. It was just like my hand was just like totally just vibrating, and I was so nervous. So this guy was just calm, cool, and he doesn't say a lot. He's kind of like an introvert, and he's like just an amazing player. He's a chess player too, so he's kind of got the mind behind the game too. So this world of Donkey Kong has taken off bigger than I would ever have imagined it would have been. The one thing I want to mention is if any time you have a question, if I say something or if you have an idea that you want to talk about, there's the microphone right there. Come on up and just interrupt me. I'm not here to, again, lecture you and give you my ideas. I want to hear from you what you want to hear about. So that's always an opportunity up at the open mic there. Yes. Oh yeah, go ahead and go up to the microphone. And I heard you, but I think they want to be able to hear it for the.
What about your arch nemesis, Billy? Is he still on the scene?
Billy Mitchell, if you remember Billy, yeah, he still plays. So at the Kong Off, we've been at the two Kong Offs. There was one in Denver, and then there was one in New Jersey. So he's been at both of them, and we haven't necessarily been head to head, where it's just me and him playing. So we've been among several competitors, but he still plays. I imagine if he had time as well, he could dive into the game, but he's a busy man with his restaurant and all that. But yeah, we interact at these Kong Offs. Also, outside the Donkey Kong world, I've been kind of blessed with some cameo appearances in some films. If you've seen Four Christmases, raise your hand. Four Christmases. Anybody seen that? Maybe Vince Vaughn and Reese Witherspoon. Okay, so I was in a little appearance in that movie because of the King of Kong. Vince Vaughn loved the movie, so he wanted Seth Gordon, who was the director of the King of Kong, to direct this movie called Four Christmases. So this was back in 2008, just like a year after the movie or documentary came out. So I'm in a scene there where I'm playing on a Wii, Donkey Kong on the Wii, and I'm watching the big screen, and my wife, Kristen Chenoweth, comes in and hands me the baby, and I don't take my eyes off the screen. I kind of grab the baby, and I keep playing. So it's kind of fun to have these little appearances in these movies. But that's outside of the world of Donkey Kong. So basically, this life has just taken off since the movie came out. I've had some other things happen. I've had a drum solo. If you've heard of the band My Chemical Romance, anybody hear them? Okay, they had a song called Teenagers, I think it was. And I was going to play that song with them. They had just emailed me. So when the movie came out, I would just get random emails from, musicians, and they'd go on the tour bus, and they'd be watching videos, and a couple of them would see King of Kong, and then they would just contact me. So I met them down at Portland in the ballroom. If you've been to the ballroom, there's this floor that's like a trampoline, if you've ever been down in Portland. And these guys their fans are just crazy. I mean, when they went on the stage, the whole fan base was just jumping up and down. This floor was like a trampoline. I thought it was going to cave in. So I got a chance to do a drum solo. That was a few years ago. So these things that have been coming up are just crazy. I would have never thought would have come out of playing a video game. If you imagine, when I first went into the garage, I had no intent of having any of this happen. I was just trying to get a record posted, like I mentioned in the movie, on a database that I had seen up on Twin Galaxies. I just ran into it on the website one day. So everything's just kind of went from there. What else I can tell you is there's another show coming up. Have you seen this promotional bit about it's like a show called The Goldbergs, and they advertise it's about this 80s family, and it's like the Wonder Years. If you've seen the Wonder Years, it was a show back in the 80s, early 90s, and it's basically the Wonder Years in the 80s. So I'm a hamburger stand. If you've been to Dick's, you know how they work at the hamburger stand. They have the hats on, and so I'm up at the hamburger stand, and one of the actors, the grandpa in the family, is driving his Corvette up to the burger stand with his kids, and he has a senior moment, and he kind of loses track of where he is, and he plows right into the furniture, the patio furniture in front of the burger stand, and I'm up there. And I haven't said anything in any of the movies yet that I've been in. I've been in Horrible Bosses, and I was briefly in there. If you have to pause the video to see me. It's like so quick. But anyways, I was asked to say something, and so the grandpa says, yeah, chicken nuggets, anybody? And I turn to him and go, barbecue or honey mustard. So that was my big one line that I've had delivered in my acting career so far. So do you have a question?
Yeah, I actually have a question. As a filmmaker myself, I'm curious of your behind-the-scenes experiences being in all those movies. I'd love to hear you talk about everything from flying down there, arriving on set, how you were treated, just kind of your impression of being a part of some big productions, and just any interesting stories.
Yeah, so the time I was on the Four Christmases set, I was there for a month. I had to get clearance from the school district to leave and get a long-term sub. So I was told I was staying in, Cary Grant's place in Hollywood. He had this place, and I was basically living in his place. It was not obviously his now, but I was staying at this place for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. They had a car rented for me. I'd drive to the set and back, and I felt like I didn't belong in the Hollywood scene, but these actors were really cool. Reese Witherspoon, Kristen Chenoweth, Vince Vaughn. They didn't act like I didn't belong, so they were very kind, generous, had a blast. And like I remember when I left the scene, when they do the close, when you're done, this is I forget what they call that, a close. I'm losing the name of that when they're wrap. Thank you. This is a wrap for Steve, and I got like an applause from all these actors. There was like several actors that had won Oscars and were just great actors. So they were just treating me like I was any old actor, that very respectful. One time I'm not too up under the People magazine, and I was sitting there. It was in the break between the scenes, and John, I'm trying to think, it was Voight, Angelica Jolie's dad. What's his name? That's right. Is that right? Okay. I'm losing all the names of these actors, but so I'm in the middle talking to him, and he's holding one of the babies that was used in the scene, because we had a couple young children. So I turned to him, "Do you have any children?" And he didn't listen. He didn't hear me. If you know, they were estranged. He hadn't talked to Angelina, Jolie for several, I don't know how many years it was, but he was like from here to the wall. I mean, I thought he would have heard me, but he didn't respond, and I thought maybe I shouldn't ask him again, but I didn't know anything about his relationship with Angelina, so that was kind of an interesting little thing that happened behind the scenes. But so next time I am on a Hollywood set, I better read People magazine. My wife told me, you got to know these things when you're going to be hanging out with these people. So that was just a little story that I had, but it was just a blast being out on the scene with, hanging out with these actors. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if you wanted to, could you live off your celebrity since the movie, or do you have to keep your day job? And what is your day job? I'm a
school teacher. I teach at Redmond High School, and I can't afford to quit my day job yet. So I'm not at that status. But these cameo appearances are coming up with Seth Gordon being a Hollywood director now. He's established himself, so he has always made an effort to get me in these little cameo appearances. I was actually an identity thief, if you've seen that one. There was a scene that I wasn't visible from the front, but you see the back of my head. And I didn't even realize, I thought I was going to be in the shot where you see my face, but so we had a bunch of people go to the theater, and I'm waiting. This is the scene where I'm going to be, and because I was in the gym where, if you remember the movie, where Jason Bateman is running past the security and sneaks into where that business gym is, and he has to sneak in and get some records. So I was the person that was walking before him into the gym, and I was on the camera. I remember I was told to turn and look funny because there was some activity going on with that was trying to distract the security guard. But all you see in the movie of me, I'm not complaining, but all you see is my back of my head as I go into the gymnasium or the locker room door. So that was kind of funny that I took all these people out, family and friends, and I thought I was going to be center stage on the big screen. So it was a little humbling, but it was just funny. But yeah, I don't have a long-term, no agent yet, so I'm still working, slaving away, teaching.
I think I asked you about this last year, possible follow-up from King of Kong, but how about something like just a commentary of it? Do you have enough material that you could do a commentary on that movie?
Oh, as the movie's playing, I could comment. Yeah, I haven't been approached or thought about that. I could offer some behind-the-scenes stuff. So the one in the fun spot where Brian Koo is going upstairs, running, talking with Billy on the phone. I had no idea what was happening. Most of the movie, I thought I was aware of what was happening, but in that situation, I knew he was doing something with. When I was playing the game, he was watching me, and he was doing whatever, but I had no clue. When I first saw the movie, when I saw him going up making phone calls, I was just blown away. I was going, wow, I didn't know that was happening. So I could be, so that would be a good idea to have me just comment on what's happening through the movie. I don't know if they would release it, maybe a 25-year re-release with me talking about what happened behind the scenes. That'd be kind of cool. Good idea. What else do you want me to hear? What do you want to hear about, guys? There we go. We got another question. Okay.
Is it possible, like for beginning Donkey Kong players, can you give some techniques or basic tips?
Yeah, at the last year's pinball show, I did a DK 101. I don't know, was anyone in that sitting? Okay, so I was basically going. Oh, there's the scene. I mean, that's funny that he's able to pull that up. So you see, I'm looking intently at the screen, and my baby daughter or son is coming to sit on my lap, and I could care less. So that's. But okay, what was your question? I kind of forgot already.
Donkey Kong tips or?
Oh, tips. Okay. So yeah. So basically, what I suggest when you're on the barrel screen is, we get the bottom hammer now with all these point pressing techniques that we've been developing. I would just go right up to the top as fast as possible, and without having the actual game here. If I had an arcade, I could kind of show you better. But if you just picture the game, and if you noticed during the Donkey Kong, when I did the white screen or the grease pencil, how I showed how the barrels could be manipulated. Like if I moved towards the ladder, it would go down the ladder. So that's a technique that's really important if you want to become really good at the game, because you can't just allow the randomness of the barrels to just eat you up. It's kind of like if you're playing baseball, if a ground ball comes at you, you just don't sit there and hope a good hop comes at you. You got to play the ball. So that's basically a skill that you need to get down, is manipulating the barrels. And then the pattern for the Rivet screen, there's definitely a pattern that I could easily show somebody. The idea that I was going to do was come up with a DVD tutorial. Would anyone, just show of hands, is that something you think would be of interest to anybody? Like if I came out with a DVD tutorial? Because that's what I was going to do, like have a nice, just break it down into the basics and commentate and just slow motion things and have it produced really nice. That was the idea, but I could never get a really quality video camera. If anyone has any suggestions on how I could get a nice quality, I don't want it to look like it's some grainy, bad video. If you have any ideas at all how I could get a nice camera, and
Could you just do it with MAME and do a recording off the computer video?
That's one way I could do it. Yeah, that's true. I could just do a computer version of it. Would it look? Might look like it's not the right version. I don't know. That's an idea though. And then I know they have these joysticks that you can plug in. Is that true? They can plug into your computer, so I could at least use a real joystick. So that's on my agenda, is to come up with, like you said, get some tips down there. The next thing that you want to be able to do is get past the third elevators, which, a lot of people get to that 80,000, 90,000 mark and then can never go higher because of the third elevator. So I would on the DVD, I would be showing you really how to break down that screen and get by that elevator screen. So I think that's one of my goals, is to get a DVD done to show you how to conquer the game.
Yeah, just a follow-up on that. Are you, like, when you do official tournament play or whatever, what kind of levels are there on the game, and what is the setting on the game when you play in those type of official settings? And then also, if you just go to an arcade and play the game, is there a way for you to easily detect what the level is on and then adapt your playing based on how the game works differently? I remember when I was a kid, sometimes I'd play one that was on an easy level, and you could go up the ladder and touch the crossbar, and then the barrels wouldn't hit you, for example.
Yeah, good question. So there is only one for the current game. When it first came out, there was this version where you could, if you climb up a ladder and just hang your hand on the girder, the barrels would never come down. So that was like the first Japanese version, which had like 2 boards, and it was like a different kind of board system. But since then, they must have realized that this was too easy, so they changed the program so that now if you go up on a ladder, most likely the barrel will come down. So there's only one version. The older version is not accepted by if you try to do a world record. So yeah, it's not like Pac-Man, where sometimes you have a faster Pac-Man or a slower Pac-Man game.
So there are no more skill levels on the most recent versions.
Correct. Yeah. So the most current version, the one that I remember vaguely playing the one where you could go up and hang your hand on the ladder, but the ones nowadays you don't find that the old version ever that I know of.
Have you ever had any good encounters with students at your school ever since the movie came out? You get new kids every year coming in, and have they seen the movie? They talk to you about it, or video games in general?
Yes, good question. So I do have kids that heard of the movie or have seen something on TV. For instance, there was on Comcast. Did anyone see Leonard Maltin? Did I get his name right? That he was talking about the documentary, and I was watching Comcast trying to find it. I never saw that segment where he would talk about it. So kids would come in, hey, I saw you on Comcast. Kids I didn't even know, they weren't in my class. And then every year I do make an effort to show the kids the documentary, just around the or winter break time. I will put that in. It's only an 85-minute movie, so we'll take 2 days right before winter break and we'll play it. And that gives the kids an appreciation of, not the teacher side of me, but, the gaming side, which kind of relates to all the kids. Like to see a young at heart teacher who can relate to what they do. Exactly.
Is there any way after this seminar we could get you to play some Donkey Kong over there?
Yeah, I can go over there after the seminar and I can show you how to just do some basics if there's a game set up. Yeah, I'll definitely do that, yeah. Anything you want to know about the film, about Donkey Kong, about philosophy of life?
I had a question about in the end of the film when the other guy, he submitted the video that had the obvious errors where it's like patched together videos.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how did it make you feel when they submitted his score as being official when it was just completely a mess of a video? It was so obviously fake.
Yeah, well, at the time I was there, I wasn't allowed to view the video because I was playing during the viewing of it. And when I went over, and it shows us in the movie, where I asked Brian, can I see the video? And he goes, oh, nope, it's a one view, one game showing, one showing only, or whatever he said. And then so I never saw it at that point, but when I watched the documentary afterwards, it was like scrambled a little bit, and I've had tapes like that where I've been really scared to death because I invest 2.5 hours. I remember after I finish a game I'd be done at midnight. Some of these world records took place long after the kids were in bed, and I'd be viewing the whole thing on VHS back when we submitted VHS, and I would watch it for 2.5 hours just praying that there was no glitch on it. And on one of mine, it wasn't like that shakiness, but it was one little like something like a blip where Mario was walking along, and I thought that was gonna like count against my like disqualify my record. So I was surprised when they would accept that, but I didn't think he would falsify a tape. But I thought they should probably find a better version, and they did. Eventually, I heard that they took it down, and then eventually they did verify like the original. That was like some copy or something you'd send in. But yeah, I know Walter regrets doing that at the time. So I was with Walter, actually. I see him a lot at these events. I was at the Denver Comic-Con just last week. So if you ever get a chance to Denver, go to Denver. It's a great town. So I was with Walter, and he had mentioned that he had never entered a score because I'd gotten the 985,000 like the night before, and that's the first time when he went into the back room and entered on the computer. He said he had never entered a score right on the spot. So that's why he felt like maybe Billy, if he had a score right there, he should do the same for Billy's. But yeah, looking back, he realizes that the tape wasn't the best version. He should have probably waited. Yes.
Like, so you mentioned if you were to get serious, you'd have to go back into the garage. Like, do you not play at all casually at the moment? And if you would play a game, like what would you expect that you would score today?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I can, out of 4 games, I usually can get to the kill screen. If I'm point pressing, it makes it more risky. So a lot of these live events, I haven't, I don't want to go out there and like get 500,000 because the public doesn't understand that when you're trying to get a world record, that you're not going to succeed. Most likely you're going to get really low scores. So I've kind of had to weigh, do I go for the world record, or do I kind of sit back and put up a respectable score? So that's kind of a dilemma live. But if I'm in my garage, I can sit there and restart the game, because if you are trying to get a world record, you just restart it if you have a bad start. But who wants to watch me get to like the third elevators and then start again? I mean, it'd be a burnout for people to watch somebody restart and restart. So I do have the skill. There's the point pressing techniques that will allow you to get in the 1,100,000. So I'm able to do that if I go in the garage, and devote 8 hours of time every day. Like I think most of these Donkey Kong players today, if you told them you must break the world record and you're not going to come out of your room until you do, they're going to probably be able to do it, because we are all pretty at the same level of skill. It's just a matter of who wants to devote their life, not your whole life, but a majority of your time. Is it that important to get the world record? And if it is, then you're going to be driven to do so. So that's where I'm kind of weighing, do I need to go back? And it'd be cool to get the record again, but how much do I want to compromise my family time? And my kids are getting old. My daughter's going to graduate in 2 years, and she'll be out of the house, so I don't want to miss, there's a lot of times I missed her growing up and during the documentary. Question?
Yeah, obviously you've spent a lot of time playing Donkey Kong. Are there any other games that you've put invested a lot of time into, and then as well, do you play pinball?
Yeah, the first question was the other games than Donkey Kong, and Donkey Kong Jr., which is kind of the sequel to Donkey Kong, is the other game. The first score I got on the world record database was the Donkey Kong Jr. score, and since the Donkey Kong has taken over, I was going to try to maybe go back and try to get the Donkey Kong Jr. record again. I don't have it. I'm like 3rd or 4th on the list now. But I've decided that if I'm going to play anything, the Donkey Kong record is the one that people care about. So I'd focus any time that I'm going to devote on video games would be on Donkey Kong. I did have aspirations to get the Popeye record, but now I'm not even going to go there because of the time that it would take to get the Donkey Kong record. The second part of the question, if you rephrase that, or just remind me what you asked, Ian. Oh, pinball, yeah. I do like pinball. There was one game I remember playing at a pizza place. It's called Cyclone. Was one of my favorite ones. I hope they have one here. It was a cool. It seemed like it wasn't like some of those games, pinball, like it seems like it just has a magnet down the middle or whatever. But this one seemed like it was fair, and I was able to score decent. I don't know if I was just getting lucky but I do enjoy pinball as well. I just don't play a lot of it because I don't have access to one in my garage. It's a little larger. Can't really fit many in my garage.
Yeah, so you mentioned getting older. I'm wondering, you ever thought about, are you mentoring anyone to follow in your footsteps, or do any of your kids have any interest?
Yeah, well, my son, during the filming of it, was playing a little bit because I was out in the, playing a lot, but since then, he's into the NBA games on like the Wii or the Xbox. So he plays more of the console games, and he got to a point where he could get past the third elevators a little bit, right around the 70,000 range. But he hasn't picked it up, and I don't think he has much interest at this point. Maybe one day he'll put in the King of Kong and look back and go, "Hey, I'd like to do that as well." Maybe, but I don't have anybody in particular that I'm grooming. But I'd like to get a DVD out there and have it. I'm not worried about sharing secrets, and I'd like to get as many people involved and going for the record as possible. Doing great with the questions. Keep them coming. I have nothing else really to mention except based off of your questions. So, anything you'd want to hear about? Future events or anybody?
I don't know if this was covered in the movie. I'm just curious. Maybe you could mention again what inspired you to get involved in this whole deal at the start, anyway.
Oh, the Donkey Kong record. So I think it did mention about I was laid off at Boeing, so I got to work at Boeing. My dad worked there for years. He retired there, and I finally got on at Boeing. And then 2 years, if you're aware of the way Boeing works, they'll hire, then they'll lay off, and then they'll hire again. So I think they're in the middle of a layoff again. So I would be a little bit leery of going back there. But so when I was laid off, I was thinking of something I could do to pick myself up that didn't involve relying on someone else for this or that. So I just knew that if I was good at Donkey Kong, so I remember just looking up the high score. And I remember back in college, I got to this screen that I didn't know what happened. I was walking along. I was on this level 22, the kill screen. I didn't know what it was called back then. And all of a sudden I just tumbled, and I didn't know if my game had a glitch in it or if there was an invisible level where you cannot see barrels. You just have to know, okay, there's a barrel, jump, when you can't see it. So it was kind of confusing. So at that point, I wanted to get back to that screen again and see what happened. I was right around the 950,000 range, so it was actually a world record. I didn't know about it back then. And then the second time I got there, it happened again. And I was just like, okay, it looks like there's no way of passing this mark. I was trying to get to 1 million. I was really close at, mid 900,000s. And then I didn't play it for a while. I think I sold it the next couple of years later. I needed some money. Sold it to somebody. And then when I got laid off at Boeing, I was just thinking about, that score must have been somewhere high up in the high world. I don't know if it was a world record, but I don't think there was. I thought it was somewhere up in the high scores. So I was looking online. Twin Galaxies wasn't around back when I was first getting the score, so I didn't have any way of knowing what the score was. But then I just happened to find them on the website, and the record was Billy's at like 900 or 875,000. So I go, okay, there's something I can do. It wouldn't take that much time to get back, like riding a bicycle, just play for a couple weeks, get the record, and be done with it. So of course it was more controversy than I would have ever asked for. The film had to go into the basics of what the controversy was. The first version of the film was like 2 hours long. Can you imagine sitting through 2 hours of just tech? And some people might follow the technological stuff behind it, but most people would just go right over the head and then be falling asleep. So the first version had the double Donkey Kong. Is anyone aware of what a double Donkey Kong is? There's the board that plays Junior and Donkey Kong. So for the sake of saving space in my garage, I looked up how to this website had this double Donkey Kong offer, and it was a guy named Scott Brazington, and I emailed him and said, does this change the play of the game? And he said no. He wrote the code that would switch between the games. So you'd switch between the games by hitting like the 2-player buttons together. And he goes, no, it's all outside of the game, nothing changes. The only thing that's different is the sound. When you're walking in Donkey Kong, it sounds like Junior squeaking up the vines. And I wasn't trying to pull a fast one by anybody when I was playing the double Donkey Kong. I was trying to save space, didn't want to have 2 cabinets, didn't want to mess around with putting the board in and out. So I submitted that score, and they went, in the original version, they talked about the double Donkey Kong, how it was different, but somebody who screened the original documentary said, hey, this is just over my head. What is this double Donkey Kong stuff? So they didn't include all that controversy. So basically that's
Opportunity for extended release.
Yeah, so there's a lot more to be told behind what you see in the 85 minutes. There's so much footage that there is definitely room. If they were to take the rest of the footage, and they could probably come up with more release material.
Yeah, just you talking about that reminds me of that scene in the movie where I guess you're not home and some of those guys, the officials or the other guys, want to inspect your machine. And it seems like your wife just lets them in and tear apart your machine. Did that really happen, or did the movie producers convince them to do that or something?
Yeah, no, that scene, so here's the story behind that. I know in the movie they are saying they broke, like I think Roy Shildt, Mr. Awesome, was saying they broke in. They didn't break into my house, of course. I was actually working that day, And I came home, and the garage door's open, and I see two guys in there playing my game. I thought, what do these guys think? Is this like an open arcade? Like they just see a video game, they go in and, hey, let's play this video game. So I pulled up in my driveway, and it was very kind of them. They weren't mean or anything. We're just talking, and they introduced themselves. And then they just wanted to see what my board was. I didn't know what they were there for. And they were just wanting to play the game, check and see if it played like the real Donkey Kong plays. They thought this was after the double Donkey Kong score where, they threw that out, which was okay. And then I went back and got a regular Donkey Kong and submitted scores on that, which were never verified. There was a lot of stuff that went on that isn't shown in the documentary. How many scores I sent in, like 2 or 3 more scores that were not verified ever. So they were in there, and I was told later that my wife was there when they first arrived, and she said, okay, you're going to wait here outside till Steve gets home, which she said in the movie. And then I guess after my wife went to work, my mother-in-law was there just to watch the kids, and she had actually given them a quarter to play the game. She was just trying to be nice, which is cool. And then they just eventually either they asked, well, can we somehow just come in and we'll just sit in the garage and we'll just wait inside. So she let them in, and then they were playing my game. So it wasn't like they hacked or broke the garage door latch and got in. So they were there and just inspecting. They wanted to see if this was a real legitimate game. And in the course of doing so, Roy Shildt, which they said in the movie, where he had sent me the game, the board that I was using, and he got it from another arcade vendor, which I had worked with. His name's Mike's Arcade in Utah. He's a legitimate vendor. So Roy had just bought it through him, and the return address had Roy's name on it. So I had no idea that. I had the box up on a shelf because I just kept the box because sometimes you want to put it back in the box. So they saw that name on there, and I remember just thinking, oh great, now they're going to think that I'm in cahoots with Roy and he's tampering the board, and I'm now putting in some fraudulent scores, and that's where it led, and that's where I thought I was dead in the water. I wasn't cheating, but I thought, now they're attaching me to Roy. I'm not going to be able to get any score recognized. And at that point, my friend, here's where the movie came in. They weren't even filming up until this point. My friend that appears in The King of Kong, his name's Mike Thompson. He's the guy that smokes a couple times in the course of the video. I would always share with them all these stories, like, what's going on. Hey, I got the world record, and I just talk to him about it. And then when I told him about the incident with the inspectors, and he was like just blown away, going, wow, this is getting way up there, and people going crazy over a video game. So he had known Seth. He didn't know Seth Gordon, but he knew Ed Cunningham, the producer, who I knew of him because Ed was a football player at the University of Washington. When I was going through school, he was the center. Now he's about my size, but he used to be like 300 some pounds. So he knew Ed through another friend, and then he told Ed Cunningham about the story, and they were finishing up this other documentary called New York Doll. Have anyone heard of New York Dolls? Or it's a punk band. Arthur Kane. It's a great documentary if you haven't seen it. So they were finishing that, looking for something else to follow. So that's where they picked up when they heard about when the people had come into my house to look at my garage or look at my game. That's when the documentarians came on and were filming from that point on. So a lot of the story they had to kind of do backstory with. And then when you see me going to Fun Spot, that's where they had started their filming at that point. So that's a little insight information.
Yeah, you mentioned that kill screen earlier. Is there any kind of consensus on, can you get by that? Are there people trying to get by it? Does anyone know what will happen if you do get by it?
Yeah, there were. Well, I know I was talking with Billy at one point, and this wasn't on the documentary, but when I was sending in scores, like I had 2 or 3 scores that were nearing 1 million. I remember I got a call from Billy at one point when I got 999,500. I was so close to 1 million. And he calls, "Hey, I see you've been playing Donkey Kong," and I was talking to him about some stuff, and this is where they thought I was cheating because I had mentioned, okay, if you've played Donkey Kong, you notice that the first 4 levels, that Donkey Kong is throwing these laser missiles every once in a while that do not appear after level 4. I mean, he throws wild barrels after level 4, but they're not there's nowhere near the velocity of the barrels that are in the first 4 levels. So I just mentioned that to Billy. I go, yeah, it seems weird that this game is like easier once you get past level 4, and he's kind of quiet, I remember. And so maybe he thought that I had a rigged version of the game. And then we'd shared some other stories about the game, and I think he mentioned that, yeah, about trying to get past the kill screen. He noticed that when you jump and you're in midair, that even if the timer is down, or, you know, like on the Rivet screen, if you're in the midair, it won't kill you midair, it waits till you land. So Billy was trying to figure out when is the Mario going to die, and then at that point jump, and then see if he can like jump over that little interval of time where it was going to kill him off. But of course when he landed, and it would just kill him Mario anyway. So there's no way that we know of. It's impossible. The program doesn't allow you to get past the level 22. But I mean, I don't even think it would be it'd be interesting to see how high we could get the score because there's capabilities you can remove the bug. I'm sure that programmers can do that now. But part of the cool aspect of the game is that you are trying to maximize points before the kill screen. So it brings this whole new approach into the game versus just trying to survive. But it'd be cool to see what the maximum score would be if we were able to just get rid of the kill screen bug. I'd be interested to see what that high score would be. I wonder if anyone could get over 2 million. That'd be interesting to see if that would happen. Yeah, question.
What was the total budget for the production of the movie, and is it a movie that was made for TV only, or was it actually shown in theaters?
Oh yeah, okay. The budget, I'm not aware of the budget. I know that they were barely getting by. Like they were. No one made money. Like the director and the producer broke even after they sold it to New Line. And it did have a release once it was bought by New Line. I had made there was a few movie appearances I made at a couple of these film festivals, like in the True Falls Film Festival. I went over to the True Falls, and then went down to Austin, Texas for the South by Southwest Film Festival. And then it did have a short run in small theaters. It wasn't like nowhere near the large, number of theaters that you would see for a blockbuster Hollywood movie. But there was a limited release for like a 3-month period in the theaters, and I saw it. It was down at the U District. There's a movie off of the University Way. There's a theater. If you're familiar with University Way, there's like a theater right in there. So there was one there's a theater down here in Tacoma. I can't remember the name of it. So there was one. I remember coming down to Tacoma for a Q&A session when they showed it there. So it did have a limited release. But now, since Netflix has been out, people are seeing it more and more every day, just on Netflix or, just those ways of seeing it.
For all the old retro footage of all the various players, was that old footage that was just all obtained by Twin Galaxies, or how did they get all that old footage?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Somehow I wasn't involved with the filming of or how they got it, but yeah, they were able to get some of those old footage of Walter Day, for instance, and of the Time Life magazine. I don't know how they got it. Maybe they just got it from Walter or some other person that was involved with the arcade scene back then. Yeah. Anything else? Inside stories, if I think of anything behind the scenes wise. If you ask questions, I can maybe stir my memory up. Yeah.
You mentioned both looking at the bug and the kill screen. How about have you met the developers and talked to them?
Yeah, the developer, his name escapes me. I should know it by now. So who developed Donkey Kong? Someone help me out there. Yeah, it was Miyamoto. Can't think of his name. I should know it. But he was in town. I think he was, I don't know if he was at the Seattle Northwest Pinball Show. But I know I haven't met him yet or talked to him about it. I don't think he speaks like fluent English. But I'd like to meet him. I think Billy's met him. Billy went to Japan a while back when he was like the gamer of the century back in 1999, I think it was. So I think he met him. But I haven't met him. It'd be cool to meet him though and talk to him. I don't know if he didn't develop. I don't think he wrote the code, but he designed it. He might have written some of the code. Any other questions?
Yeah, who was the driving force behind the movie, actually, like the idea and then bringing it forward?
Okay. So my friend that I mentioned earlier that relayed the stories to Ed and Seth was he's a Hollywood screenwriter. He's written, I don't know if you've seen Dragonfly with Kevin Costner, or if you saw the show, did anyone see John Doe when it was on Fox? Like, I don't know, these are just old things he did. He wrote the John Doe, which was a Fox series. Fox cancels everything after a year, so it didn't last long, but it was a good show. And he's a screenwriter, and he knows a good story when he sees it. So he knew the story, he knew me, and when they first started filming it, they were wondering, hey, so my friend's name is Mike, and they're going, hey Mike, this guy doesn't seem like he's very interesting or something. And he goes, wait, you just wait. When you get to know him more, he'll come out of his shell. So Mike was kind of the guy pushing it and going, hey, it's going to be a good story, when at first they didn't think it was much there to do. But yeah, Mike Thompson's his name.
Just curious if you've had any really good games that maybe you wish you were recording or trying to set a record, but you didn't get it officially on tape or something. Have you had games like that?
Typically, I refrain from trying to go for a world record if I'm not going to videotape it, because I don't want to have that exactly happen where I'm killing it and I go, dang it, why didn't I just start the video? So whenever I were to play it, I would always, if I'm going to go for a serious run at the record, I will always record it for sure. And I got back from the Denver Comic-Con. I got the lowest kill screen I think in history. I was just trying to race it to the end. I got 837,000, something silly. But it was, I wanted to get there for the crowd that was assembled at the Comic-Con. It was cool. And there's this guy named Richie Knuckles, who's the guy who started this Kong off. And I got on his shoulders, and then there was one Kong off. The first one, he put me on his shoulders, and I'd weighed 30 more pounds than I do now. So it's hard to believe that he was able to get me on his shoulders then. So this time he's trying to get me on his shoulders, and he was struggling because he was trying to get me up on the shoulders from a squat position where you have to leg press me, and that's a lot. I mean, I'm 195, so that's still a lot of weight to having to leg press somebody. So there's video of that on YouTube as well. And then he runs these Kong off events. But I kind of lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? Anyone? Somehow I got on Richie Knuckles. So I remember what I was initially.
You about if you ever missed a good
Oh,
game that you were playing.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the long story to that is no. So what I was doing was I was going back to Richie Knuckles, because when I got back from Denver, that's where I got that little seed in my head, do I really, I could get this record if I really want to get it. I mean, I'm not going to say it's easy to get, but so I went in the garage when I got back from Denver, and I was playing it, and I wasn't getting a world record score, but I was playing well enough that if I were to sit down and start recording, I think, if I were to sit in there for a while over the course of, who knows, I mean, it can take up to a month to get these records sometimes. So that's, if I'm going to start doing it, I would definitely videotape every effort. I would never just go in there and just play for, casually and just hope, I would always just record it.
So when the King of Kong, you talk about these producers that made this movie, my understanding is that they were involved in another project at the time and that they abandoned that project to do the King of Kong. Is that true, and what was the project they were involved in? And then also I've heard that there's going to be a screenplay for the King of Kong to make it into an actual motion picture, and I'm wondering, has there been any progress on that, or has there been any casting in that area?
Yeah, so yeah, I mentioned the New York Dolls documentary. They were doing that one before they were wrapping that up. I believe they finished it. They I think Ed maybe had left and let Seth finish it, but they had finished New York Dolls before they, there might have been some overlap between the King of Kong and New York Dolls, but I know they finished it up eventually. And then the second part is there is New Line Cinemas bought the rights to the movie version. They're going to make a Hollywood. The plan was to make a Hollywood version, cast Billy and me as whoever, whatever. I think there was mention of, I always forget names, the Iron Man actor, whoever's Iron Man, who's the, yeah, Robert Downey was maybe in one of the names brought up to play Billy. And I think Jason Bateman's name came up for me at one time. So this has been like 5 years. So a lot of these movies that are bought by Hollywood, they can take up to 10 years to get done, because you need everything to line up. All the actors that you want to have be available at the right time. The director has to be available, and the screenplay or the writing has to be there. So they were having problems with the writing. It didn't quite click for some reason. They knew that they didn't want to screw it up, because if you do a Hollywood version, it may look so phony that because the documentary itself kind of looks like, are these guys real? So they were worried that that made them look, the movie version might just look like a joke. So that, I think the latest idea was they were going to have it be like a faux doc, like if you see The Office, where it looks like it's a documentary of the documentary or something. So that's the latest, but they're still working on a script. As far as I know, they've had like 3 screenwriters come through, and they're still trying to figure out the script that would make it the best movie possible.
So I have a couple questions. One, last year I bought your King of Song.
Oh, cool.
And I
Thank
was
you.
wondering, with all your alternative background in music, will you ever make another album that is a little more grunge?
A little more grunge, yeah.
And one more question.
Yeah.
Was your son ever untraumatized by the pottying experience? Has he been potty trained efficiently now? Or?
Yes, my son is officially potty trained. Good question. So back with the music, yeah, I came out with a second CD like a month and a half ago, and it's a little heavier. With eventually, I want to start doing like real guitars and more heavier stuff, incorporating, because the problem is I have a limited budget, so a lot of the music I had to do was through MIDI and hiring musicians that are real guitarists take a lot of money and time. So, but eventually I do want to do one that's all just no MIDI, just all raw, like guitars and everything, and real drums, because I have like the MIDI drums are on there, but eventually you gotta do like a real live sounding album, like you're saying. And my son, as what you brought up, he is kind of, now he's 13 years old. He's grown up a ways since then. It's kind of, I feel bad because he'll mention every once in a while, he'll go, he's worried about the public seeing him. And he's like, I go, hey, you're 3 or 4 years old. It wasn't you that was the bad person. It was me. I try to tell him that, but he just gets he's worried that there's somebody out there is going to be viewing it and laughing at him, which I try to tell him. He's kind of like my mother-in-law. He's really worried all the time. Hypochondriac, worry, wart, all those elements that my mother-in-law has. So, yeah, so I try to calm his nerves about that.
Do you ever play Donkey Kong casually, or is every time you play like to build your skills up again, or like go for a record?
Yeah, good question. So I would right now. I would never just go out into the garage to play for fun. But you know, a lot of these events that have come up, like at the Denver Comic Con, I wasn't going for a world record, so I was just playing just to get a kill screen. So yeah, I don't just go out there. It's still enjoyable to play, but I don't just go out in the garage and go, hey, I'm gonna go play Donkey Kong for fun. So it's always got to be driven by a world record score, which I'm just so nervous to go into that world, because if I do, I'm so obsessive that I wouldn't stop playing it until I got the record, and it might just lead to just bad things, not like not evil things, but just self-destructive, where I just stop going to my job. Like, where's Mr. Wiebe? Oh, he's not here today again. You know, I got to be a teacher, so I got to be careful. I'm really worried about like getting into the world again, but it's on the edge of my mind.
I have one more question. So the score recently, for those who have been following, it's changed hands with various different players. I'm sure you've mentioned it, Hank Chin, and there's some others whose name I forget. Is everybody basically have the same gameplay, or are people implementing different techniques to score points? And I know you have a DVD out there where you show your gameplay in its entirety. Do you think people have pretty much copied that, or are they doing it a different way?
I think the basics of getting the bottom hammer is there, but I've seen other players that I'm not as risky as they are. I've seen where they allow this fireball to be jumping around Mario, versus I would just grab the hammer and kill the fireball, which eliminates the risk. But so I know there's people that are doing things a lot more risky, and there's a couple other point pressing techniques that I've learned since the video that I've put out on DVD. So there are things that have been developed to get over 1,100,000 versus just breaking 1 million. It takes more point pressing techniques now that I can do now, and they're it's so we're all kind of similar in what we know gets points. Few people I've been watching do a little bit different things that went in their gameplay, but it's generally the same idea for the barrels. The barrels is the one that you're going to get your points on, and that's where you got to maximize your points, because it comes up on any level. There's 3 barrel screens out of the 6 screens. There's 3 barrels, a pie factory, a elevator, and a rivet screen. That's 6. So the majority of them are the barrels where you want to maximize the points. But yeah, for the most part, we're all in touch with the same fundamentals of point pressing. I'm still trying to figure out that hidden technique. I don't know if there is one out there, but I imagine if I found it, it would be just made to the public. Next time I played a Kong off, if I was doing it, everyone would see, oh, there's another way of getting points. So I imagine any new point pressing would be quickly caught by everybody in the hobby. So, but I'm still looking for something. I don't know if it is out there though.
Do you play any other games besides Donkey Kong?
Yeah.
What would be your other favorite video game from classic arcade gaming?
Yeah, the Donkey Kong Jr. was the other one I had a high score on, world record score. And then I did like back before Donkey Kong, I discovered Donkey Kong, I played Pac-Man. I never got that great of score, but I did know I would go into the bookstores. Back in the day, they would have the cheater books, and I would just, instead of buying them, I should have bought one, but I just looked at it and read through it and put it back on the shelf and took all the secrets. But I did find I was never at the status of perfect Pac-Man scores, but I did like that game to start with. Galaga is another. I'm not very good with Galaga, but I enjoy playing that. And there was another game, Jungle Hunt, that was kind of like Donkey Kong, where you kind of like a Tarzan character and you're jumping over things and swimming. I was always thinking maybe go for that record. But again, I don't want to detract from Donkey. If I'm going to spend time on video games, I got to focus on, if it's going to be Donkey Kong, I got to stick with that, because I don't have a lot of time to devote to the games.
I've heard that on the Rivet screen, is it possible for you to jump over one of those moving fireballs and have them fall into the gap of the rivet? I've never actually seen that, but I've heard it can be done. And if that can be done, can you possibly just jump over it back and forth to get points, to press points?
Yeah, so and when you're crossing a rivet, there's that yellow rivet that when you cross it, it removes the rivet. So it is possible, I've done it, where if you time it right, you jump over the rivet as the fireball is on the rivet, and when the rivet is removed, the fireball gets locked in that little gap, and it just shakes back and forth. So you wouldn't be able to jump it, standing, across ways, but there is a way you could sit next to it and jump. And if you've seen on the Rivet screen where I go up by Donkey Kong and I jump in the air and move the joystick, you could do that next to that fireball for a long time. I guess that is maybe
Would you get more points that way than doing it beside Donkey Kong?
No, it'd be the same. So I guess it wouldn't necessarily, it'd be the same time frame. You'd be jumping up and down and getting the same number of points per minute or whatever it would be. So that would be one way of getting more points, but yeah, so that would be one way.
So how did your wife react to becoming a Donkey Kong widow? And then the next question is, how is she reacting to your newfound fame after this documentary, and your family, I guess, as a whole, with this newfound fame?
Good question. So yeah, she at the time, I don't remember her complaining too much when I was actually playing. She would say, you have to go out after the kids are in bed, and every once in a while I would, like on the one tape that Derek's had a messy diaper, that was during the day. I kind of cheated and played during the day and got caught. Didn't think that would ever end up on the big screen. But kind of getting tired here. What was your next part of your question? Oh, the newfound fame. Yeah. So she hasn't complained much when she got to go to Rascal Flats, and we got to be seated like right in front of the stage and met Taylor Swift. She likes Taylor Swift. This was like 4 years ago. So a lot of these things that she's been able to be involved with, the perks, she hasn't complained too much. Got to meet Taylor Swift and hang out with the Rascal Flats band and go to Matchbox 20 was another concert we got to go to. But yeah, so, and then nowadays she doesn't mind if it's occasionally I do events here and there. It'd be nice to have her come out to one or two and bring the kids out. So I'm trying to get them to come, if it works out, where if I go to Denver, so maybe at the next Kong Off they could all come out, and it's a good place to be anyway, and they could, while I'm playing Donkey Kong, they could visit or see the town. Yeah.
So one of the great things that made the movie amazing was the conflict between you and Billy Mitchell. I know a lot of that's done up more for the documentary. I've unfortunately never seen both of you in the same place. Now, when you do conventions and you're there together, do you keep that little bit of antagonism going, or do you actually be cordial?
No, we're cordial. So yeah, he'll come up and we'll shake hands. We don't, not through my decision or necessarily his, but we don't seem to carry on conversations at length, which I don't know if he didn't want to talk to me that long, or if, I would be willing to sit down and talk to him, but so it doesn't develop into an ongoing conversation. We'll say hi, and that's basically it. We'll shake hands, but we're not trying to play up the what you see on the, like you said, it's hyped up for the entertainment purposes, exactly. And people are who get bent out of shape about it are forgetting it's entertainment. If it was just a like a historical thing, it'd be so boring. Who would ever even watch it? So you gotta play up the elements that make it art, I guess would be a word for it.
And is there anywhere in Tacoma that you want to go that you haven't been to yet?
I'm gonna go to Dorky's. Dorky's rocks, man. I gotta go set up a high score on Donkey Kong there. So go to Dorky's. Yeah. Any other questions? How are we doing on time?
About 5 minutes.
Wow, that's been an hour?
Hour and 10.
Wow, I wish my students would sit down like you guys sit down for an hour and 10 minutes. Yeah, I guess.
How did you initially get involved with Roy, and do you still talk to him?
Yes, Roy. So I'm trying to. Things have long. I forget that I've been doing this for like 13 years. The documentary didn't start until like 2005 when they started filming. But I've been, a lot of things have happened that aren't even in the film. So the Roy scenario, somehow I do remember how this happened now. So the double Donkey Kong score I submitted was turned in, and it was verified by Robert Merzek. And somehow somebody else at Twin Galaxies noticed the sound I mentioned on the double Donkey Kong. The sound of Mario is a squeaky sound, and it's obviously a different sound than the regular Mario sound. So I got a phone call, or actually at first I had an email from Roy. I didn't know who Roy was, and he's like, said, "Call me. Do you know what they're planning to do with your record?" And I was like, I don't know anything. So I called him, and he explained how he was mistreated for his Missile Command score, where they pulled his score, and he was trying to band with me to go against the evil Twin Galaxies and save the world. So he told me about the double Donkey Kong, where he asked, what game did you play? And I go, Donkey Kong. And he goes, was it a double Donkey Kong? I was going, well, I didn't think that had any bearing. But then when I thought about it, for the purist's sake, yeah, maybe it's going to not be counted. It was a legitimate score now if they want to classify it now as double Donkey Kong score. So that's how he first contacted me, that your score is going to be disqualified because it was a double Donkey Kong. And then from there, he wanted to have me get a legit. He helped me just get a board because I didn't have a real board yet, and I ordered one, and it came in and it was broken. And when I ordered a board on eBay, it was busted. It didn't work. I plugged it in, it didn't work, and I couldn't get my money back. The person who was selling it just fell off the face of the earth. And I think there was about 10 other customers that did, and I saw some of the other items that were. I only paid like about $100 for it. Some people had bought like a $2,000 machine or something, and this guy had just I don't know. I did get in touch with them eventually. He said, "Yeah, I've been really sick," and then he said, "Clean off all the connectors, and then try it again." I tried it, didn't work. So then I told Roy, I can't get a board. So that's when he got the Mike's Arcade board, who I had actually contacted at one time about getting a board from Mike. But so then that's where Roy came in, and it was kind of like my little coach in the corner, like, "Come on, you can get him, come on." Which I wasn't trying to necessarily beat Billy. I was just trying to get a high score. But Roy was kind of trying to seek, like I mentioned in the movie, about seeking his revenge on Billy through me, trying to get back at Twin Galaxies, having me be the instrument, so to speak. Yeah, the Nintendo, I was not really approached, but I did meet the people at the Redmond office, and I had toured through their facilities, and so surprisingly, they didn't really see an opportunity to promote. I guess they figure Mario's as big as he's going to get anyways. Everyone knows Mario, so it doesn't really going to help Nintendo having us push Mario and Nintendo. So they didn't really pursue any endorsement deals with the King of Kong. But I did meet, had a dinner at one point with the people at my Nintendo, and they gave me a Wii game and for free and stuff. Had some stuff given to me from them, but that was about as far as it went. Yeah.
I read some very obscure article on the internet that said that you were scheduled to be on the TV show Survivor. Is that true or not true?
True. There was one point. Oh, I forgot about this. Okay, so yeah, good story. So that's why I lost 30 pounds. I had to go into the weight room or go into the gym. So anyway, I get these emails every occasion, like from artists or musicians, but this one was from some people that were passing through. I didn't know they were involved with Survivor at the time, but they were going down to the final episode, where they film on the live studio, and and reveal the winner. So they were going down to that filming, and I just mentioned that, hey, once they said they were going down there, I said, yeah, I always thought maybe I would want to go on Survivor, because my wife had submitted a videotape years ago. She would love the show and wanted to go, and she submitted an application to go on. And then I told them, hey, I thought it'd be cool to go on. So then I got a email a couple months later from these guys, and they said, yeah, we're gonna talk to the person whoever is the person that is in charge of getting the people on the show, and we'll get back to you. Then I got an email from the casting director, I guess would be the role of that person, saying, hey, we want to fly you down to LA, and we're gonna, normally you have to do this submission process. You have to go up your way up the ladder, but I just went right up to the top, where I get interviewed with Mark Burnett and Probst, the show host. So I'm down there interviewing, and I was told, like, pack your bags. You're not on the show for sure, but we think you're a good chance. So I had my bags packed. I had to go, and I bought all these shirts and wardrobe. They told me to get certain colors and certain types of clothes to bring down to the show. Then I shipped them all the way to LA, because they told me to do that, and they go, okay, we'll get back to you and verify if you're going to be on the show. And then they said, we decided that not this time, but maybe next time, which I don't think will be next time. But then they called another week later, and they said, well, we want you to be on Amazing Race with Billy. And I go, well, I'll do it. I don't think Billy will do it with me. Then they go, okay, we'll call Billy. And then Billy didn't want to do it for whatever reason. He couldn't do it. I think he had too much didn't have enough time to go away from his family. But I almost was on Amazing Race too, I guess. So that's yeah, they got my clothes back, yeah. So that was good. So there's the Doing the Donkey Kong song right there. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming out. Thanks for the questions.